Hey everyone, let's post that. Okay, we got some people in here. Welcome back to Beyond Ballin with LaLa, everyone. I know we had to take a little break, but obviously everyone knows the climate that our nation's in currently, and we as Beautiful Ballers fam just felt it was very important to just take some time and reflect. But we are back and we are in business, and we have a very special guest with us today. We have Asia Royster, and she's a member of the FAMU women's basketball team. She played with them this past season, and she's also a clinical health major. I feel as though with everything going on, especially for, my particular community, things have been a little bit overwhelming. And just to have someone with her background and who is in the counselor education program, it'd be great to hear her take on things. So, get her in right now. Let's try to add her.
Hi.
Hi, Asia. How are you?
How are you?
Oh, I'm so good.
No, really.
Everyone,
How are you?
no, I'm good. Honestly, you know how I am. Asia and I have been on FaceTime pretty much the entire day. I'm
All
not
day.
even gonna lie.
All day.
So we're very used to this. So Asia, I was just talking to them about the fact that, our nation we're dealing with a lot of things right now. We're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with a lot of, racial things going on. And, with your background and so much expertise that you have, how are you feeling people are handling it overall?
Um, so as you mentioned, there is a lot of racial tension. There is a lot of how can I help? What can I do? And so I feel, from my experience and just being able to talk to other people is they're kind of feeling numb. And that is essentially like an overall gist that I've gotten from the conversations I've had with others, the conversation I've had with myself, and even our conversations. I've just been getting that we're kind of here, and we haven't really been able to. A lot of us, fortunately, haven't been able to experience something as drastic as you know injustice and inhumanity within this system of oppression. So I feel like it is a very heavy thing that's going on in our world, and I personally can understand, burnout and
Definitely.
what all this environment is bringing. So
Definitely. I think you just mentioned a huge piece of the whole burnout, just feeling like overwhelmed. And you are an athlete, as I mentioned before. And so you have the amazing opportunity of not only being an athlete, but being a clinical mental health major. So what's one thing, because as an athlete, we all know, you deal with a lot of things outside of the court, on the court. And a lot of times I feel as though back in the day, it used to be a little taboo to talk about mental health. You know what I mean? It was like, just play, put everything else that you're going through outside to the back burner. What's one thing that you've learned while being a clinical mental health major that you've been able to bring to the court or to your game?
So fortunately, I was able to turn a negative situation where I did tear my ACL my sophomore year, and you start questioning yourself, what's going on, what's happening, and so being able to experience that physical injury and having the opportunity to get my master's and still play basketball at such a illustrious institution like FAMU, it's been very what's the word? It's been an experience for sure. And so I think in my courses as a clinical mental health candidate and as a person who's just an advocate for mental health, it's being able to really hone into your own embodiment of who you are. And so I think that as an athlete, we have so many different roles. We're a daughter, we're sisters, we're athletes, we're students. It's
Yeah.
hard to find something for us to basically fit or mold into.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think that it's say or fair to say, here, this is this is what I should be,
Yeah.
so this is what you're gonna get. No, like, okay, what do I want as a person? What do I want
Mm-hmm.
as for myself? You know? And
Definitely.
so I think that that is just something that I've been able to um, appreciate, not only appreciate, but learn
Definitely.
over the course of basketball and over the course of, my academic career.
Mm-hmm. I love how you said that. We have a lot of different things that we're involved in. And I feel like to fans, oftentimes we are only seen as an athlete. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly why I wanted to do this show, because we have a life beyond balling. You know
Right.
what I mean? We do other things. And although, this is very important to us, obviously life outside of it is very important. So my question to you would be, how would you define mental health?
Oh, mental health. That is such a one taboo in our community, or as you mentioned earlier. But I think mental health is just something that has been one not only neglected, but something that's just I don't. It's very hard to define mental health.
Yeah.
It's based off your own individual mind, mindfulness, wellness. It is all just essentially from your own perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And we can diagnose, obviously, we can experience symptoms of certain things, but I really feel that um, mental health is just your own mental well being and your own wellness within yourself.
Hmm. I agree. I think you just said that perfectly. So, what moment was it when you knew that you wanted to be a clinical mental health major?
Oh, girl, it had to have been when I was, what was it, senior year high school. I was really struggling with what I wanted to do. I was taking all these visits to schools, junior year, and not knowing what I was going to major in. So I took a psychology class at my high school, Sefner Christian Academy,
Okay.
and I just fell in love with my professor's teaching style, the way
Mm.
she was able to explain and really bring out our feelings, something that I wasn't comfortable doing in class. Um, she made it seem like it was okay.
Hmm.
And so from that point forward, I was just like, okay, it is okay to have like feelings. It's okay to be a person. It's okay to express and to really understand that although we have something going on up here, it's
It's okay to talk about it.
yeah, it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, I love that. So, what advice would you give to, that other young senior who's taking visits to schools but doesn't really know and maybe doesn't have that amazing experience of having such a interesting teacher or course? Like, how would you say someone should find their niche?
I think it's all trial and error. Like,
Hmm.
it is trial and error. Before I found basketball, I was into gymnastics. I was into cheerleading. I was into, things that I wanted to try, but as soon as I did it, like, it just didn't bring any type of fulfillment. And
Hmm.
so I think it's the same thing. It's trial and error. Take a course online, ask different majors, ask different students, ask,
Hmm.
team members, especially when you're going on visits. This is where you get to ask, how's the program like? What are your classes like? What's the
Yeah,
class load like? So it's very very trial and error based and
definitely.
essentially on any how you make it.
Definitely. So, obviously, just how athletes were able to speak up about mental health, we're seeing a lot of professional athletes speak up about the Black Lives Matter movement. We're seeing LeBron, obviously Colin, I want to say like he was kind of like in the forefront, obviously, and got a lot of the, you know, a lot of stuff to bear. We have Michael Jordan, Joe Burrow, and, obviously coaches in different organizations. How do you feel that the public is dealing with the fact that all of these, like people that we look up to are now speaking on a topic that to a lot of people is, a little hard to deal with? What would you say?
I think that it's amazing. It's so refreshing to see people who you idolize, who you don't ever think are just regular people. being
Yeah.
able to speak about something they're so passionate about and something that does hit home, because what if it was, a LeBron? What if it was, you know, Colin Kaepernick? Like, what if it was them? And
Yeah.
essentially, it could be. Like, you never know. Like, there is such hate in the world that you never know what's going to happen.
Mm.
So I think it's such a beautiful thing for them to be enlightening people on the matter. It sucks that they're going to experience hate. They're going to experience criticism, but that's just something that comes with territory. And at the end of the day, when you feel like you believe in something so heavily, it's hard not to just use your voice and use your platform.
I agree so much. I saw a post and it said being black in 2020, and it was like four things that you have to do with. So, living through a pandemic in which your people are dying at a disproportionate rate. Number two, watching and mourning the deaths of people who are killed for having the same skin color as you.
Mm.
Third, fighting for justice. Four, finding joy despite the pain. And when I read number four, I was taken aback a little bit, because after hearing, those three real things that we really have to deal with, I feel like a lot of people forget that, you have to find time to be happy. So what have you been doing to still, sustain that joy despite everything that we're dealing with?
Okay, so that's such an important question. It's,
Yeah.
what do you do during this time? What do you do
Yeah.
during when you're experiencing burnout? And burnout is just, the experience of physical, emotional, and mental, like, exhaustion. Like, it's just where you feel like you can't, um, you just are tired all the time.
Yeah.
So that's often caused by like long-term involvement in stressful situations, like, the pandemic, all of 2020,
Yeah.
that's going on. It's just been a stressful situation. So I think for me, it's just been able to, one, not only identify my feelings and how I'm feeling in the present moment, but also trusting and talking to
Mm.
um, friends and families and therapists and just other people for to not only get a new perspective, but to also, just let out my bottled up stress. It's
Mm.
basically to alleviate stress.
Yeah.
And so I just think that, one, not only identifying your feelings, finding someone to essentially talk to and release your stress with, but also learning how to take a step back, learning when it's too much, when it becomes overwhelming, when we start experiencing those symptoms of burnout. Do we need to identify that, one, and take that step back to get us back to a place to where we are able to um, fight the good fight and fight for what we believe in.
Yeah.
And so,
So, what would you say to people who need to just push that reset button? Would you say, put down your phone for a certain amount of time and just don't look at things, or listen to music? What do you think is like the most effective way for people?
so I can't give everyone, advice on what works for them. I
Yeah.
can essentially, identify what works for me and what works for others,
Yeah.
and try and, teach basically others of other ways um, to cope, essentially. And so I think for me, what's been working is just being able to unplug from social media,
Hmm.
disconnect yourself from what's going on around. And although it's so much harder to do because it is
Yeah.
everywhere,
Yeah.
um, it is just so important. Like, we live in a time where social media is has such a heavy presence that we need to be able to take that step back. Again, take that step back and know, like, this is exhausting me. I think I remember going through Twitter and I'm just like, back after back after back, there's, videos of cops doing this, cops doing that. We, and although we knew, it's just more in your face. And
Definitely.
so that can cause that burnout, that can cause that stress. And I just think for me personally, that number one thing, especially that's going on right now, is taking a step back from social media and
Hmm.
being able to disconnect.
Definitely. And I was doing a lot of research because I told you, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I'm starting to feel, sad, and I can feel like this cloud following me. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's because, we're still out here, and life is still going on, but we also have to carry this weight of what, our people are dealing with. and I saw a lot of research on keeping a routine. You know, they're saying that it's very essential for mental health. Do you agree with that? Would you say like a routine, keeping that same routine while in quarantine helps, or no?
Um, Again, with research, you have outliers. So I believe that I am one of those outliers. I do
Gotcha.
not like to follow a set schedule, and I've never really liked or enjoyed following set schedules. I'm more of go with the flow, get up in that moment and do something. I'm very adventurous. I'm very spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
My mind does work 1,000 times, so I
Mm.
can understand and appreciate a routine, but
Yeah.
within limitations. Like I don't want to feel like I'm restricted into that. But routines work for some people. Routines having that I know I'm that comfortability of I know that this is what I have to do next
Yeah.
is it works for some. It just doesn't work for me personally.
Definitely. That's fair. So during this time, you know, home alone, obviously we're social distancing. Have you learned anything new about yourself?
Oh, so not even just social distancing or the pandemic. It's also been transitioning from a student athlete to a full-time student, a full-time you know um, abuse counselor, and so it's just
Mm-hmm.
been hard, um, aligning identifying with who I am and where I'm going.
Hmm.
So I think the biggest thing that I learned about myself is that I am more calm than I think I am. Like
Huh.
I hold a lot more power in my emotions than I think I do.
Huh.
And if you asked me 2 years ago, I would have been like snapping, like on go, like jittery, antsy, like whatever comes to mind, I'm spitting it out. But I'm essentially like growing for not only to bite my tongue, but
Mm-hmm.
just because knowing that you're not going to argue with people who have no intention of learning.
Yeah.
You know, you're just
Yeah.
not going to do that. It's just not only a waste of your time, it's just a waste of everyone surrounding. And so I think it's just really focusing on um, controlling what I can control.
Definitely. So you mentioned a little thing about, when people talk, what people say. And I'm seeing this quote a lot, and it's saying, silence is violence. To you, what do you think that means?
Um,
Especially now, like during this, movement and everything that's going on, I'm seeing it a lot more, and I feel like it has a new take on it now.
yeah, so two perspectives. I've always tried to think of things from this way, that way. Um, I do believe that if you are being silent and during this time, especially you pick and choose your battles, when to when to use your platform and when not to use your platform, like thinking you have a voice, not thinking you have a voice. I think that is frustrating because it's like whether you have, you know, MySpace to, what's now Instagram, you could always like use that voice. You could always out to your street and say something,
Yeah.
stick up for humanity. Essentially, that's what it is. It's just
Mm-hmm.
sticking up and being an ally for human rights and human ethics. But playing devil's advocate, I can
Mm-hmm.
understand from where people that don't say anything are just either too scared or just don't have enough information about the subject to where they can't.
Have an opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like I understand from both perspectives, but I do believe in all aspects that you should always lift your voice and rally together, especially during times like these.
I agree. And obviously we all somehow took part in Blackout Tuesday, right? So we're seeing all these black screens, and some people are like, "Oh, what are they? Like, why? What is this doing? This is doing nothing." Then some people understand, it creates solidarity. And I saw the statistic online, which I found was very important. I'm going to tell you it. So it said that Blackout Tuesday has 23 million posts, right? So 23 million people posted that. But George Floyd's petition only has 11 million.
Mm.
So to me, what that's showing is that a lot of people are posting these black screens to act like they're a part of the movement, but in turn, not really doing what it takes to truly be a part of it. You know what I mean? Because that's half. You know what I mean? Basically, half of the people who are posting the black screen really didn't do anything beyond that, and that just can't be it. How do you feel about that? Knowing that statistic now, that you can post something and seem like you're about it, but really do nothing beyond that.
Girl, that part, like, you already know. I honestly feel as if, and I don't know if we discussed this or we just, texted back and forth. We did
Yeah.
something, what's next? What's after this black screen? What do we do next? So it is
Definitely.
signing those petitions. It is, emailing folks. It is
Hmm.
like using your voice now. Like, yeah, okay, we identified, we're here. We
Hmm.
posted these black screens, we're here. What's next? And so it is, um, not only gathering people's attention, but using the, like, now that we have the attention, using that to our momentum. And I feel like some people just aren't doing it for the right reasons.
Hmm.
Essentially, what that black screen is, everybody saw, okay, black screen, easy. But I've seen people who posted a black screen who hasn't said not one thing, signed one thing. And so I think to each his own. You're gonna do what you're gonna do at the end of the day, and I stand by that heavily. But do something with the time that you wasted posting that black screen to email your local authorities, like email
Definitely.
committees. And so it sucks that people are kind of just doing it just to do it, but there are those other 11 million who have signed the petition, who
Yeah.
have tried to do their best, and all it takes is one.
Hmm.
It just takes one, and
Definitely.
hopefully that one leads everyone else.
Definitely. I keep seeing this quote also, Black Lives Matter is not a trend. And I just want to harp on that because as I'm going through my social media now and I'm, scrolling through Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook, I am seeing that a lot of people's content is going back to regular. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's going back to as though nothing happened. And I follow a lot of different, fashion bloggers, beauty bloggers, and some of them are Caucasian, and they were so gung ho about the movement a week ago,
Hmm.
but now it's just back to like everything is normal, and I just feel like that's not appropriate now. You know what I mean? Like obviously we have to continue moving on in life, but what are some of the things that people can still be a part of even while they're just still moving on with their daily lives?
I think it's just finding your battles,
Mm-hmm.
picking your battles. It's very unfortunate to see that people do treat it as a trend and treat it as if, oh, that last week's news, this is just 2020, when, back in 1996, we had police brutality. Like, back
Mm-hmm.
in the 70s, we come from a system that wasn't built for us. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's going to hit more than some, but it's just, again, doing your part and making sure you stay true to your values, your worth, and again, like, trying to educate as many people as you can. And if they
Mm-hmm.
decide to take that, that's, at least you spoke out about it.
Yeah, yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, obviously not many of us have experienced a pandemic, barely anybody who's alive has. So with everything going on, what would you say is the number one component that helps you personally lower your stress levels during this time?
um so personally, praying, but generally it's just the meditating and breathing, and the openness that I have with in my connection with God, like that,
Mm-hmm.
is really helping me through this time. Um, I've learned an abundance of breathing exercises. I've learned how to meditate, and meditating just being injecting your far-reached and long-term benefits into into your life and into
Yeah.
your own, like, self. And so I think just essentially what I preach to people is to breathe through it, is
Mm-hmm.
to really just sit and relax and just breathe through that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously for me personally it was exercise, even though as I told you I haven't worked out in like a few days. So exercise was the thing that was that was keeping me sane. But right now, with the stay-at-home order in place, it's tougher to, be able to get out and find movement. So for you, how are you finding ways to still, make movement a part of your daily routine?
Um, so fortunately for me, there is a lot of group meets that I've joined. There's a
Nice.
lot of group messages that I've joined, to where I can stay updated if I need to, and I can just go back and scroll through that where they're posting information, they're posting updates.
Yeah.
that's been a good tool for me, but also going out, being on the front line,
Mm-hmm.
being there and experiencing everybody else's hurt and pain and their want for change,
Definitely.
that's been really obviously hard on me, but it's also been very eye-opening.
Definitely.
I got to do that. I got to do something like that with my dad. I got to go out to a protest with my dad, and it was just, it was amazing to have a black man next to you
Hmm.
chanting these chants, wanting to fight, wanting to change a system
Mm.
that, you know, isn't built for him or me. It was, it was just, you know, heartwarming. And I think it's just finding those kind of niches and those things to really pour your heart into.
Definitely. So, like you just mentioned, you have done protests. You've been a part of protests, which is extremely commendable. And for people who haven't taken part in protests, what would you say is the biggest thing that they're missing? What's like the biggest takeaway that you left with? And if you were to tell someone like why they should, or like just that feeling, how would you describe that to people?
So my personal feeling was just overwhelmed.
Hmm.
It was just overwhelmed with an abundance of emotions, that being happiness, sadness, crying with my two little sisters because, you know, we feared for our children's lives, we feared for our brother's life. It's essentially, it's like a concert. Like, you go
Hmm.
to a concert, it's way different than you listening to it in your headphones, you know. um, you're feeling, you're being able to
Part of it.
experience, you know, that
Hmm.
what's going on in front of you. And so yes, it was hard, but I feel like it was essential for me and for um, my self-awareness to be able
Hmm.
to be on that front line. And that's, it's okay if people don't want to be on the front line, you know. There are many other ways to protest, as we mentioned: signing petitions, calling up other people. But it's finding something that just aligns, finding one type of thing during this time that just aligns with you and what you stand for.
Definitely. I mean, when I protested, I told you, it was just so awesome to be surrounded by like-minded individuals. You know what I mean? When you're posting, it's super cool, because you don't really get to feel the feedback of people and how they're reacting. But when you guys are together physically and actually, like you said, like saying these chants, and for the first time, I went to a protest with my mom, my sister, and I, and we were just saying Black Lives Matter. And for the first time, it made sense, and I just couldn't understand how anyone would debate that I'm saying that I matter. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it was just beyond words can't even describe. So I would definitely say if you have the ability, definitely go to a protest because it's so different. Um, Being there, like you mentioned, like being in a concert, you can't even describe. So I know a lot of people are still confused as to why we're still protesting. I'm seeing a lot of tweets and people are, ignorant people are saying, they charge the police officers. So what would you say to people who are still confused as to why we're protesting? What would you say is left to be done?
Oh, there's so much left to be done. There's,
Definitely.
um, first of all, getting a man who just does not respect humanity out of office, out of running a country that, you know, is, it was already not built for us. America
Yeah.
was not built for minorities. And unfortunately, we have a president who, or we have a man, I don't even want to call him the president, but we have a man who is in office who just does not care about people.
Hmm.
And it's disheartening to be living through this, but it's also essential. And it's, after all storms comes a rainbow, you know. And my
Hmm.
favorite Bible verse is literally Romans 8:18. It's just like, for I consider the temporary struggles are not worth compared to the glory that shall be revealed to us. And so I just think that, again, everything that you're experiencing is temporary.
Hmm.
Everything that's going on is temporary, but it doesn't mean that we can't do something about it.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that we can continue to fight, continue to work. Yes, the officers got arrested, but what happened to Officer what was his name, Chavez?
Yeah.
He got arrested for third-degree murder, first-degree murder or something. They just upped
Yeah.
his charge.
Yeah.
And so it's us using our voices. Yes, they're arrested, but we still need to, we need policy change. We need reformation.
Yeah.
We just need a bunch of different things that are protecting us, because the system is not.
Hmm. I couldn't have said that any better. I want to say this because this is, something else that we're talking about now. Yes, George Floyd, but we don't even know what happened to Breonna Taylor. You know what I mean? And it's countless others like that we continuously are protesting for. So for anyone who's confused as to why we're still out there, why it's going to continuously be a movement, that's why. I saw the statistic and it said 7,666 deaths by the hands of police officers
Wow.
in the past 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But only 25 convictions and only 95 of them went to court. If that statistic doesn't bother anybody, then I don't even know if they have a brain at this point. Because it's just like, that's unfathomable if you really think about it. You know what I mean? I'm talking about 7,000 people, and you're telling me only 25 of them got charged. That's thousands that are just walking, you know what I mean? And that's why I'm going to continue to protest, because it's just not okay. So what do you think are some affordable ways that people can stay mindful? And like you mentioned, mindfulness, you said breathing exercises, manifestations. What are some ways that they can do that while they're at home?
Okay, so the biggest thing is, again, as I said, breathing, and just being able to sit in your emotions and being able to really hone in on what you're feeling. So for me, I don't know. If at the end of this, we can try a breathing exercise. But and you guys at home, you guys can try this with us. But anyways, it's just finding something that relaxes you and that stimulates happiness and joy. Because as you said, we need to cultivate moments of to experience joy. Joy is protesting, being happy during time where a nation is just in utmost a disarray is a form of protesting. So I think the biggest thing for me is being able to breathe through things. And so I would really love to teach y'all how to breathe through things and how to essentially kind of calm your nerves, calm and relax yourself. So yeah.
I love it. Your voice just kind of got me calm right there. And another point that I wanted to mention, a lot of people are talking about, these protests are not peaceful. And I saw on your Instagram that you experienced, a situation where you were at a peaceful protest and it took a turn. Could you tell us more about that experience that you went through?
So before the protest began, his name is Amani or Mandy, something like that. Can't remember. A young black man. He took his bullhorn out and he said, and it's in front of the masses, "This is a peaceful protest. We are not going to give them any reason to come at us, to neglect us, to abuse us. This is a peaceful protest." And so everyone in their minds had it, peaceful protest. We're walking, we're marching, and all of a sudden an officer just comes and grabs this umbrella from this, I want to say, less than 100-pound girl, 17-year-old, just walking, whatever. He bikes off, whatever. We're chanting, we're going harder. We're like, this is why we're out here. This is what we're doing it for. As they're biking, several cop cars come, block us off, and they just yell at us. They yell at the crowd. They're blocking us off from going to a certain place when we just want our voices to be heard. We just want abuse and neglect from officers to stop, to just be a thing of the past. So initially the same girl walked with her shield, was walking towards the direction that they were pointing, and 3 officers came and grabbed this girl, and I felt so helpless in that moment. And I know so many of the protesters out there did the same, and just grabbed this girl, tackled her to the ground. And there were students. It was mostly students, but students trying to protect this girl. And here the police, Tampa PD, is with a wall and mace, and little guns shooting rubber bullets at people who just are trying to protect a girl who was trying to use her voice. So it was frustrating. It was disheartening. It was a moment I know that she will never forget for the rest of her life. And it is just something that I know I won't be able to forget.
Definitely.
I know that it's something that people back in the 50s, 40s were fighting for. The same fight they were fighting is the same fight we're fighting, and it's just frustrating that history has to continue to repeat itself like this.
Definitely. I mean, just hearing you say that just kind of brought chills through my body. And so I couldn't even imagine living it. But I feel like we need people like you to tell that story, because a lot of people are getting information from the media and different news sources that are saying, looting and riots, that's all the protests are about. But you just told a totally different story, and that I would explain too, because these protests are very peaceful. I saw a quote that read, people understand a white kid shooting up a school because he was bullied for 4 months, but don't understand why an oppressed group is compelled to burn shit down after 400 years. And I love that quote, because it's so true. We as African Americans have dealt with so much oppression from the moment that we were kidnapped and brought here.
Mm-hmm.
From a mental health standpoint, how can we deal with that anger? Because I'm angry. And I feel as though, there's only but so much that you can do right now. So how do we deal with that anger?
Again, I think it's personal preferences. I think it's trial and error, finding things that are going to compel you to release that energy that you have from that anger.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was basketball. I was angry. I would go lace up my sneakers and I would go shoot a hoop. I would go play with my brothers. I would go bully. Try and bully the next person at pickup.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was in a way I was able to release that anger, and I always felt much better for it. So I think now you hit it right on the head. I'm angry. Like, what do I do? How do I release this anger? Because I feel like, when I'm not being heard, I feel like nothing's changing. So what do I do with this anger that I have? And I think it is just really sitting with that emotion, sitting and realizing what you're angry for. How is
Mm,
this anger affecting you? What's affecting you to why you're angry? And
definitely.
only you can answer those questions. And um, after answering those questions, if you don't feel a little more calm about the situation,
Mm-hmm.
then that's just something that you have to identify and work amongst yourself with.
Definitely. So last night I was able to read an article on the Players Tribune from NHL player Mark Frazier. And, he was talking about, obviously he plays hockey, and that's a predominantly white sport.
Mm.
And he's an African American man. So he's talking about his experiences on the ice and obviously off the ice. And one thing that he mentioned today is that millennials now are not willing to roll over and deal with what our predecessors were able to deal with. What do you think is the biggest difference between our generation and generations before us?
So I think for our generation, we are kind of mouthy. We are.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of, again, like he said, won't roll over. We won't sit down. And I think that's just growing up with more culturally competent individuals who are, again, like-minded like how we are, who want change, who have read about it, who have learned about it. We live in social media, so we have,
Yeah.
and we live with the internet, so we have access to what has been happening in the past, to where we want to change that. We don't want to just sit and deal with it. Like, that's not, we're not just going to shut up and take it. Like,
Yeah.
essentially, it's someone has to start that, and I feel like our generation is the start of that change. And it is going to take time, and it's just being patient and continuing to fight, and continuing to work towards something that's better for our, not only our lives to come, but our future children and their
Definitely.
children. We don't want to leave Earth in the same state that we came into it.
Definitely. And, this is what I told you earlier. It's like, I'm doing this for my kids. I'm doing this so they don't have to. And when I went to a protest, we walked from the White House to the United States Capitol. And for those of you guys who know, that's at least, I want to say like 8 miles. And while I'm walking, obviously I'm tired, but I knew that I couldn't stop,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't stop. And so although, the posts have slowed down and, people are starting to talk about it less, we have to continue to fight the good fight, as you mentioned. Dwayne Wade tweeted and said, "Justice will not be served until those unaffected are as outraged as those who are."
Amen.
And while I'm out there protesting, you see it's a lot of white people. It's a lot of people from different races. And it's amazing to see that we're all coming together and being a part of this change, which I love. So now you mentioned, back to breathing exercises. What do you think is the general time frame in which patients, well, I don't want to say patients, but I'll be a patient, in which people will see results?
Results meaning?
As in, like, how soon will I be able to be calm after I'm doing these breathing exercises? Because I'm still angry.
So anything that's new or foreign is going to take time to um, really reveal itself to you. Just like basketball, you want to shoot 3 feet out. Okay, work on that. Like have the work on that. Work on your craft. Continue. You want to do an in and out move. Like work on that. That's what you're going to work on so that you can translate that into the game. So I think essentially it's the same thing. You're not going to be good at something initially, and you're not going to see results initially unless you're Kobe Bryant. Then you're great. You're the GOAT. But just that my little tidbit. But anyways, you're not going to see results instantly. It's always going to be, again, like I said, trial and error. It's always going to be, is this working for me? Am I seeing a change? And I think with that being said, it's just trying it. It's trying that you can't say you don't like it unless you tried it. And you can't knock anything unless you tried it. And so I'm that way in my worldview, and I'm the same way when it comes to calming myself down. It took a lot for me. I didn't think sitting and just breathing was going to help, but
Yeah.
when I really decided to value it and really decided to believe in it, then that's when I saw that there was a difference.
I love that. So I saw your Instagram post, and everyone who's in this live, make sure that you guys go and click that follow button for Asia. And you have a wellness check and peaceful protest that you are hosting. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so with the current climate, I personally am just so, again, tired, I'm drained, I'm exhausted. I've experienced that burnout. And so I've been able to deal with it because of my clinical mental health background, to where I just want to share it. Like, I just want to be able to share that with those that are experiencing the same thing, because essentially that's what I'm getting this degree for. I'm doing this for people who need that outlet. And so I think with going to protests, I was always making sure I was mindful of meditating before I go, having that clear mind, and that that openness for me to be accepting and receptive of things. And again, just to recharge too. I'm doing this to essentially like have a breath of fresh air. With everything that's going on, it does feel like the weight of the world is on our shoulders. And so I think if we can even take 2 hours of our day, which is how long it is, 2 hours of our day to just relax and decompose. Yes, recharge, decompose. Like, it is important, and it's
Definitely.
it's something that not everybody has access to.
I agree. So, sadly, obviously, some of us, because we're all over the world, can't be a part of that. So, is there anything that we can do at home in order to get, maybe just a eensy little bit of stress relief that you're going to be blessing the people with tomorrow?
Yes, so I am going to be doing a lot of meditation, teaching of meditation, and breathing exercises. And so one breathing exercise that I really adopted into one of my own, especially in times of when I'm going to experience like stressful situations, is called a boxing breathing exercise.
Okay.
And so Navy SEALs actually use this exercise. They're the ones who kind of coined it as their own. And it is called the boxing breathing exercise. And they use it for when they're going into those stressful situations. They use it a lot in training, and to help them prepare for, the field. So what you do is you're just going to get into, and I'll do it with you guys, we're going to get into our most relaxed position. I'll wait and give people a minute. And we are going to shut our eyes. And
Oh, wait, keep them closed though. Okay, sorry.
yes, keep your eyes closed. I'll give everyone a minute for real.
Okay.
Okay. So we are normally this is a silent activity, but an exercise, but just for the teaching purposes, I will be counting with you guys. So what we're going to do is close our eyes, be in our most relaxed and comfortable state that we can at the present time, and we are just going to breathe in with 4-second count. So 2, 3, 4, and we're just going to hold it for 4 seconds. 3, 4, and we're going to exhale. 3, 4. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to breathe and do that on 4 counts. And normally I do it for 10, but for this sake, I'll do it for 3. So breathe in, 3, 4, breathe out, hold, 3, 4, breathe in, 4, hold, breathe out, 3, 4. Oh, and I don't know about you, but I'm already feeling much calmer.
Look, I feel so much calmer.
I, oh my gosh, I'm even just speaking through that. That was powerful.
That was very
And
powerful.
that was just one exercise that you can adopt and make your own. You can obviously go on in YouTube things. You can slide into my DMs, ask me, can you send me a video of how to breathe? I am here for you guys. But just, breathing and being able to sit and release and inhale and exhale, all that energy that you have is just so vital. It's so important.
Definitely. I feel like a weight. I'm not even lying. Like, I really feel like a weight was lifted off my shoulder. That was amazing. I feel so much better. I hope you guys, everyone in this live was able to do that with us, because that was a game changer. It really was. And Asia, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and coming and sharing all your knowledge with us, because a lot of us don't know the proper tools or the proper information on how to deal with everything that's going on. And I feel like with your background, being an athlete, and now what you're doing with your life is so important, and I'm so happy that you had the chance to share it on this page.
Thank you. And I just want to say I'm really appreciative of Beautiful Ballers and everything that y'all stand for. I've been a fan since high school. I've been featured a lot, and I just am so appreciative of you doing these Beyond Ballin with having that perspective from other athletes, and just understanding that we are more than pretty faces. We are more than just putting the ball in the hoops. So I really do appreciate you and this experience.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, you know what? I'll text you. And everyone, I hope you guys have an amazing day. We're going to end it here on such a positive and nice and refreshed note. This is Beyond Ballin, and this is episode 6. Okay? And we're out.
Bye, y'all.
Okay.